If a person is not copying from a written text, lo yichtav al peh, shemakro soacher. He should not write based on someone else dictating to him. If somebody else says, it says Shema, and he's not writing it from the text, someone else says Shema, before you write it, you should say Shema and then write it. Eliyahu v'yikra b'fiv. We'll see if it's before or afterwards. Laman Aleph. If you're copying from a text, one doesn't have to verbalize it. Which is not simple. It's meaning that the person knows the parsha by heart, so he's fluent in it. So if he's copying from a text and he knows the parsha, so he doesn't have to actually verbalize it. That even when you're writing from a text, you say Shema, you see Shema, you say Shema, and then you write it. Although you're copying it from a text to Shema. Even though you know Shema, because by verbalizing it, it makes it more certain that you can write it as you're copying it from the text. This is the mitzvah of writing Sefer Tefillin mezuzah, hevel kriyas kol teva v'teva yotzim piv v'akoreg nipshechas al osios. It's not because we're considering we may make a mistake, because the verbalization of the word brings a kedusha on the letters. The letters should have a kedusha. When you say the word, shekosu osem biklaf, chozel lechatchilo. This is all something which is on an optimal level. Abidiyeva ein difsal b'chol gavnim loto. That as long as the text was correct, he didn't make a mistake, even though he didn't verbalize it. It's interesting. The Mishna Berura writes at the beginning of Hilchos Shabbos that when you purchase food for Shabbos, you should say, "I'm purchasing it l'kovod Shabbos." When you cook the food and prepare food, you say you're doing it l'kovod Shabbos. And when you say that, he says the food assumes a level of kedusha. Actually, it's almost like it's like a consecration. You know, you're not consecrating the food, but it elevates it because it's a designation.
You eat it as well, right?
That's the mitzvah of eating it. But I'm saying that's the reason why he says over there that food that's prepared for Shabbos, you should not give to a non-Jew to eat. And that's not talking we have a housekeeper. Let's say some every people that have leftovers, they give it away to the housekeeper to take home, so she has what to eat all week. It's not the right thing to do because the food itself has kedusha. He says you should not give it to a non-Jew. Mishna Berura says.
It's better to throw it out.
Whatever it is. I'm not saying no. If it's throwing out, you don't throw it out. But let's say you're able to give it to another Jew.
Truma was a Kohen could give his truma to his non-Jewish employees.
No. To an animal. To an animal, or to his slave. If it cannot, it's a chattel. It has to be his chattel. It's not his chattel, the employee cannot give truma.
His animal.
Because animal is an extension of himself. Right, that's his asset. Right, it says that when Avram purchased the Moras Machpelah, it says Vayokem Asodeh. Right, everything had an elevation. That because it was his asset, the asset always identifies with the person. The Gemara says that Vayokem, because one's wealth establishes a person's position. It's an extension of the person himself. Al Peh Shemakre, Afil Shogah B'Fiv Gamkein. If someone else is saying the word where you don't have the text, and even if you're fluent, you should say the word Yikra B'Fiv Kol Tev Kodem Shichtaveno. Before you write it, K'dei Shel Yiteh. She should not make a mistake. Koshkeim Mukosu Al Peh B'Li Bakra. Definitely, if he's writing it without somebody where you know it by heart, but before you write the word, if you're not writing the text, there's no question that before you write the word, you should actually verbalize the word to make sure that the word that you're writing is the correct word. No, they once asked Chaim Volozhin had a brother's name was Rav Zalman Volozhin. So the Vilna Gaon said on Rav Zalman Volozhin that when he was maybe 20 years old, he said, if Chas v'Sholem, the Tanakh would be destroyed, Bavli Yerushalmi would be destroyed, Gemara Rashi Tosas, Rosh, Rib, all of them, Torah Shulchan Aruch, and you gave her Zalman Volozhin a quill with ink and a parchment, you could rewrite everything. That was Zalman Volozhin. That's how, what kind of memory he had and to what degree he invested his life. At the age of 20, he knew the whole Torah's entirety. So a story, somebody once gave the Vilna Gaon a gift, an orange. It was unheard of. A person would have an orange. And Zalman Volozhin was sitting next to the Gaon, and he dozed off, and his head touched the orange. So the Vilna Gaon says that you have to dispose of the orange. It's a question of ruach tumah. Because he slept, his head touched it. Why would sleep? He would have needed it. And he says, when you throw it away, make sure to cut it up. Because if you just dispose of it as an orange, the person finds it, somebody's going to eat it. But it's because it has ruach tumah. It's a question of danger. So therefore, it's a menace. Cut it up and dispose of it. So somebody asked Rav Chaim Volozhin, said, if your brother, even the Gaon speaks of your brother with such great esteem and such great value, so what's the difference between him and the Vilna Gaon? Is there ever relevance to this halacha which I'm talking now? They're just not telling you stories. So they said, so what's the difference? He says, every Jew knows Ashrei Beheld. And Jew knows Ashrei. In those days, every Jew knew Ashrei Beheld. When I was a child, most people davened every day knew Ashrei Beheld. So you would say to the person, what's the fourth word? What's the sixth word? Read it diagonally, read it vertically, read it horizontally. The Vilna Gaon, in one moment, in every direction you could see, he saw whatever that was. That was the Vilna Gaon. And therefore, he saw things in Torah which other people did not see. He knows everything. He can write everything. It's the same thing. That even if a person knows something, but unless you actually express it, it's less of a reality. And because it's less than a reality, therefore, when you write it, you should actually verbalize it before you write it. Each one. Yes? Well, if you don't speak, it's within the context of saying the pasuk anyway, so it's not a problem. And also, if you're doing it for a reason, it's not. I mean, the Sfardim for sure. Sfardim are very lenient. Saying the Shem Hashem. Even if they say a partial pasuk, when they say a drasha, Sfardim, or they say a bracha, they say the Shem Hashem. They're very lenient.
It's jarring. We're so used to people not doing it.
There was a story in the Republic Bank, which was Edmund Sapper's bank, so I used to say shir there, and Rabbi Dweck from Deal was there, and they had just brought 20 Syrian young men out of Syria. It was, in those days, this was almost, they had to smuggle them out, and they could have been killed, whatever it is they came. So they had a luncheon, which Edmund hosted, and they invited him, I'm not going to mention the rabbi's name, an Ashkenazi rabbi. All Sephardic rabbis, and which means they had pulpits in the Syrian community. And this Ashkenazi rabbi, Manhattan rabbi, gets up, and and the reason why he was there was because he had certain political connections. That's why he was there. And he gets up and he says, "Baruch Shechianu b'Shem Malchus." Baruch Atah Hashem Elokim. They're very upset, very upset. Would you ever say a bracha, say Shem Hashem? It wasn't within the context of the pasuk. He said a bracha. Halachically, because you feel you say Shechianu, it has nothing to do with you, whatever it is. And besides, the Sephardic rabbis here, or they're like the Murad Asra. You're here saying the Shechianu. But again, it's not so simple. Even though they say it, it's only within a certain context. It's not, you just say a bracha whenever you want to say a bracha. Lamed Beis. We said earlier that when you write a lamed, the top of the lamed should not go into the letter above. So you have to leave enough space between the lines that when you write the lamed, correct? So you have to start writing the lower line has to be far down, that the lamed, when it goes up, it doesn't enter into the airspace of the ches or the hay, as we said earlier. So that's what he says. You have to leave enough unwritten parchment. Let's say you score a mezuzah. So when you score the mezuzah, the lines, you have to make sure the lines are wide enough that when you start writing the bottom of the lamed, when it protrudes upward, there's enough unwritten parchment that it should not go into the line above it. That's what he's saying. There's enough space. So Hago, Shiu gamke gamhin mukofim gvil. Also, it has mukaf gvil. That if it touches the letter, it's not totally surrounded with parchment. Mishna Berura Lamalo me'ashitz k'tei gago shalam and v'nir lidaynu mechsav beinani. Afilu kosev raksav koton. Lo omer menochos lo kamoli atva desaf pirshu rishani shu k'dei lichtov gago shalam v'im iso di yeshchiluk bazeh ayeshurum. He wants to say, what about, you have other letters. Letters which don't protrude upward. Let's say that line doesn't have letters which protrude upward. What should the space be? That is the shear. The space from line to line should be the equivalent of the lamed protruding upward. That should be the space. Even if the letters that you're writing will not enter into the space of the line above it. Efshel litrok doch gemara lo ayrak because of beinani kuf mem ulamato and the line below kishir kof v'nun pshuto, meaning an end chof and an end nun. Because again, what about it goes downward? Elongate, it goes into the line below it, so it has to be enough space below. Ubetchiloson, the sofon, ain't tzorch l'niach klau. What about the margins? The end of the line and the end, right? Ubetchiloson, the beginning, ubesofon, ain't tzorch l'niach klau. Kuf mem. Pshuta vod mashu la'kovs gvilom. ותם לחוזק כדי שיזדמי לו חוסם שיהיה לו מוקם לזה וישום מצורך להניח ועוד למעלה מגג של למד למטו מחוף אינום פשוטו כדי חצי ציפורן. זה רק לכתחיל כלל, רק משהו לקובס גבילום. Yeah. And what he says over here at the beginning, בתחילוסן סובן אין צורך להניח כלל. Now the question is, but if you start writing the letter, it has to be mukaf gvil on all sides, right? So I mean, what do you mean? At the beginning of the line, the end of the line. So the Mishna Berura says, tzas. So Ramos says, miu nogu hasofrim lo niach tzas betchilu v'sof. They leave a little bit at the beginning of the line, at the end of the line. So Mishna Berura says, factually, the mechaber can't mean there's no parchment at the beginning of the line, the end of the line, because when the letter starts, it can't be at the very edge, correct? Because you need mukaf gvil, there has to be unwritten parchment surrounding the letter. So he means more than that. K'tzas, haynu k'tzas yosim yakovas gvil. Meaning the mechaber says you only have to leave just a mashu, just a minuscule amount of unwritten parchment at the beginning and the end of the line. That means there's really, literally no margin. There's only enough that it's considered that there's unwritten parchment at the very beginning. The Ramos says the mixovers, they leave a little bit more than that. K'tzas doesn't mean unwritten parchment, means a little more than what would be considered mukaf gvil. That's the k'tzas.
Are we talking about the side?
The side, the beginning of the line, the beginning of the line.
But not the lines that the letters are on in the middle.
That we said there has to be enough on the bottom that one should not protrude into touch the one below and one above.
The line itself.
That means vertically.
The line on
the width, the space between them.
Right. So if it goes above that, but doesn't go into the letter above that.
You do that, so it should not go in the letter above it.
Correct.
That's why. So you make sure they're wide enough. The line, the spaces are wide enough that they should not go into the other.
So we're talking about the margin
No, right now we're talking about the margin. Do you leave a margin?
from
The outer.
left and right.
Right
borders.
where the line begins or where the line ends. How much should you leave there?
So if we say mukaf gvil,
No, so the Mechaber says you don't leave anything. So anything seems to be nothing, which can't be. Can't mean that, because you need mukaf gvil. So then the Ramos says, but the minik sofrim, they leave k'tzas. So the k'tzas means, he's saying, on the Mechaber means a little bit more than mukaf gvil. Meaning the way they write it, they're very skimpy on the klaf. So therefore they leave literally minimally mukaf gvil. The Ramos says, but the minik sofrim, they leave a little bit more than mukaf gvil.
so we're talking about mezuzah and tefillin.
Tefillin mezuzah.
The Torah, this doesn't come up, because the Torah, there's always a margin because you have to stitch it together.
No, but on each section you have many columns written. Same would be
there's
this.
gaps between the columns. And
Correct.
And so there's always mukaf gvil, say Torah.
Well, Tefillin also. I mean, if in the Shel Yad you have the parshas written there, they're consecutive, one after another. They have to have space from one parsha to the other also. One continuous cloth in the Shel Yad. It's not separate parchments. Okay. Okay.